Love for Sale, bought by the Billionaire, by Lexi Wood, narrated by Giselle Renarde. Who said business acumen came with experience? Angelica had a scheming side and a head for numbers. So what if she'd never owned her own restaurant or run a media conglomerate? If you provide a service your customers like, that's really all that matters. And Angelica had a product she could be proud of. One hymen, kept intact throughout 4 years of being pawed at by high school boys, then another 2 years of being wooed, if you could call it that, by drunk college guys. It wasn't just her hymen the customer would get. He'd get it all head to toe. The no kissing rule wouldn't apply. She made that very clear in her online ad, and she didn't mind being a tad demanding while she was at it. Any guy who was willing to pay cash up front for her virginity should be willing to take her out on the town, wine her, dine her, maybe a stroll through the park, then to bed. Prostitution seemed like such a tawdry affair, but it all depended on how you conducted yourself. That's what Angelica figured. If she was businesslike about it, then it was a business like any other. She dressed for her date with that in mind. Stay-up stockings, silky blouse, white lace panties and bra to emphasize her virginity. On top of all that, she wore a serious pinstriped skirt suit. She either looked like she was ready for the boardroom or prepared to close ranks with Jimmy Hoffa. She wasn't entirely sure which. Hair up or down? Up was more professional. She twisted it into a tight bun, grabbed her purse, and marched from her apartment in the most formal manner her sensible heels would allow. The highest bidder called himself Mr. M. She didn't mind that he wasn't upfront about his real name. He could be married, could be a politician, could be anyone. That part of this endeavor was almost exhilarating. Not that Angelica was doing it for the excitement. She was in it for the money, plain and simple. When she arrived at the restaurant on the corner, the hostess escorted her to a private booth in the back. It wasn't until she was following the girl in the world's shortest skirt that she started having reservations. What if Mr. M wasn't a good man? She'd done her best to vet him, but just because he'd never been in trouble with the law in the past didn't mean he couldn't begin any time. Maybe he was above the law. Maybe he was a police officer. Oh, God, what if this was a sting operation? She'd never even had a parking ticket. She couldn't go to jail. Maybe she should just turn around and abandon this project before it got her arrested. Your date is waiting for you right here, the hostess said, opening the velvet curtain. Too late now. Angelica had missed her chance to flee. She was in it up to her neck. Time to face the music. Thank you, she said to the hostess as she slipped into the booth. That's when she saw him for the first time, the man who would take her virginity. She thought he'd be old. She thought he'd be suave. And he was. His hair was the same shade of gray as his tailored suit. He was obviously much older than her, but his skin wasn't wrinkly. He took care of himself, that was for certain. This was a man who cared about his appearance. Hello, she said, feeling painfully shy. I'm Angelica. A smile broke across his pink lips as he reached across the table. She put her hand in his, and he kissed it. I hadn't imagined you would look quite so businesslike. Angelica was happy to hear that. Businesslike is exactly what I was going for. This is a business transaction after all.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?